Hi there, Rob from KingThing Marketing here, and today we're here for the Digital Ready program, and we're going to talk about understanding your analytics. Now, before you turn away and think, well, this is going to be a little bit of overkill, I can promise you what we're going to do is trying to put all of the data that we look at in the context of, well, what can I do with this information? How can I apply this to my business? How can I apply it to my website and my social media posting? So hang in there and we'll see how we go with this. So as I said, we're here for the Digital Ready program, and if you're not aware of the program, they have an awesome website that has oodles and oodles of fantastic resources for you to be able to access. You can do things like put your own website through some paces, and it gives you some scores about how it performs. But the other good thing about the program is there's those resources, there's videos, there's blogs, there's written content, but also there's a tab, and it's the one that says Digital Coaches. If you tap on that, you enter a page that has about 6 digital coaches, and you can access 2 hours free mentoring with any one of those coaches. Most of the time we do that via Zoom, but in some cases we can do that face to face. So I encourage you to avail yourself of that if you haven't already. At the end of this presentation, I'll give you a phone number as well if you wanted to book a session in. So we'll hop into it. So some of the things that we'll cover in this presentation is why use Google Analytics or any of the analytics that are available through social media. We'll give you some definitions before we hop into a live session, and that's where we'll give you that tour so you can actually see real data from a real website. Once we've been all the way through Google Analytics, we'll step into social media insights for both Facebook and Instagram, and then we'll talk about a few tools that can help us do some reporting and manage some of that data that we can extrapolate from all of those platforms. Okay, so we're going to look at Google Analytics, and would you believe today Google announced that they've made some wholesale changes to analytics. So if you start to see me fumble around a little bit when I'm talking about some of these topics, things might have moved a little bit. But the good news is there's not wholesale changes, there's some cosmetic changes, and they've added some extra functionality. We won't cover that today because we're just going to cover the basics. So why use Google Analytics at all? Well, number one, just by connecting Google Analytics to your website, that's just a tiny little tick in the SEO suite of things that we do just to keep Google happy. And you can genuinely make some decisions about your website and your business based on the data that you see in Google Analytics. For instance, if you have a campaign and you're wanting to drive traffic to a particular page, you can go to Google Analytics to see if that's working for you. If you're targeting a particular region or a state or a city, you can drill down to see, am I getting the kind of results that I need? Particularly for e-commerce sites, you can set up conversion goals so you can actually track how those sales and those conversions are going. And one of the things that we always like to look at KingThing is where traffic is coming from. Is it mostly from mobile or is it from website? And so once you know that, if you're looking at revamping content on a page, then you can work out whether you need to present that so it's more mobile friendly or more friendly for desktop. So they're just some simple things that you can work out once you've had a look at some of the data. So some of the things we're going to look at very, very quickly today, and it will be very much an overview, is we'll look at how we drill down to where our traffic is, so that geographic location. We'll look at that desktop versus mobile traffic. We'll look at how we record and how we see how much time people spend on a page. So that information is important if you have a lot of content on a specific page that you want people to consume. If you can see that they're not spending too much time, then you can make some decisions. Well, how can I change that content so it can be consumed? We look at popular pages. We look at a thing called bounce rate, and I'll give you the explanation about that in a moment. And we look at the source of traffic, whether it's organic, direct, whether it's via social media or referral sites. And also we'll talk about visitors, whether they're new or returning. So they're just some of the things that we'll talk about. So Google Analytics is free. All you need is a Gmail account. If you use WordPress as your website platform, then you can connect it through Yoast, through Wix and Weebly. They have a special little connection that you can connect it from within the platform, but it's easy to set up. If you struggle with it, then you can always go to your web developer. But in the most, it takes probably 2 or 3 minutes to set up. And as I say, it's a free resource, so great idea to use it. So some of those definitions that we're going to look at, the ones that we're going to talk about are ones that are common right through most of the reports that Google Analytics presents us. So it's a good idea to become familiar with these definitions. I'll give those to you now, but when we hop into the live site, we'll be able to show you that by hovering over some of the wording, then we can get those definitions if we lose our way. All right, so the first one we're going to look at is users, and these are designated as people who have initiated at least one session during the date range. Okay, so what we do is we can nominate what length of time or what period of time we want to look at data. And so that measurement of users always relates to that period. And it's the same with sessions. This is how many sessions have been used in that date range. So clearly a user can have multiple sessions. So if you can see on the slide behind me, we've had 227 users in this period, of which there was 270 separate sessions. So the bounce rate is the next stat, and that's the percentage of single page sessions in which there were no interactions with that particular page. So Google's really keen to understand this, because if you can imagine, if somebody's doing some searches online and they come and they do find your website and they go to your website, if you don't fulfill what that customer or that searcher is looking for, then Google needs to know that your website isn't a match for that term. So it's an important measurement for Google. So what happens is if somebody doesn't move to another page, or they don't click on something, they don't watch a video, they don't scroll down the page, that's counted as a bounce. So industry standard would say if it's 50 or less, you're doing well. If it's 50 or more, not so well. The example on this page, it's almost 75%, so that's not a great result. And the next one is the average duration of a session. So of the 270 sessions that we've had in this date range for this website, the session duration was 58 seconds. So again, if you can hold somebody for just over a minute, you're doing okay, because we tend to scan and we skim until we find what we want with websites. So we'll just hop down the page a little bit, and we'll look at traffic channels. So when a user moves from another domain to your website, that's called traffic. And that's how Google collects that data. And it does break it down into greater detail, so we can see the source and the medium of where that traffic's from. So the source is, it might be a search engine, or it might be a referral site. And the medium is the category of that source. So if it was from Google, well, is it from a Google search engine, or is it from a Google ad? So it gives us a good insight onto where traffic is coming from. And that referral traffic might be from a partner site. So if somebody finds a supplier of yours and you're linked to that website and they come to you from that site, that's counted as a referral. So a good example is this: if you have an accommodation business and traffic comes to you from, say, the Tourism Tas, Discover Tasmania website, that's counted as a referral. And one of the other common tags that is in analytics is first-time users during that selected date range. So it's not new users, period. It's new users just in that date range that we've selected. All right, so one of the first things I was ever taught when doing presentations is never rely on going to any live presentation, because then you're at the mercy of Wi-Fi and anything that can go wrong. But we are going to give it a go. So we'll hop into Google Analytics. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to a Google site. So here we are in a live site. This site is a Google site, and it is bringing in data from one of their shop pages. So they get quite a lot of traffic, and they do have that e-commerce functionality, so it gives us a little bit more to look at. So whenever you log straight into Google Analytics, the first screen that you're greeted with is this real-time overview. And so what it's saying here is that there's 215 people that are live right now on the site. So you can see that jumping up and down. That's as people enter the site and they leave the site as well. And it is very much an overview. Before I kept saying about we're always looking at data in a date range. This view is because it's current, it's real. We don't have to choose a date range. And so what it does show us is some of those active pages and how many people are on those. It shows us where people are currently located, and we can certainly drill into that a little bit deeper if we so chose to. So you can see over on the left-hand side, this is all of the tabs that we have available to us and all of the options. So here we can see that we are in that real-time mode. So we're in overview. So let's go to locations just because we can. So it's showing us where the traffic is coming from, and we can, anytime we see a line or a button that is blue and underlined, that means it is linked, and we can drill down a little bit further. So now we can see the exact zones that people are in when they're live, which is really interesting stuff. So for some people, when they launch a particular campaign and they want to make sure that things are happening, this is a great way to see the magic happen. So from a live sense, we can also see where the traffic, the sources are. In this case, it's not, most of it's direct, so people know the site, so they go straight there. So what we'll do is we're going to close that live view up, that real-time view. And the other view that is really useful is the home page. And on the home page, you can customize this to however you want it to look. So all of these little grids and squares and reports and graphs, they are widgets, and you can bring in the ones that are important to you. So if you just need a quick overview, you can set that up. So every time you go there, you just get the information that you need. And there is the opportunity to do custom reports as well. So you can create custom dashboards, and so you can have multiple screens that you can have as standard screens and call them up. And once you've set those up, if you have a team and it's important for them to understand what's happening with your data, you can share those views with those people as well, and so they can see them. So for some clients, when we're doing a big campaign, we'll do exactly that. We'll ask the client what they want to see in these reports. We'll set them up, email it, and they can view it at their own leisure. So keeping on this left-hand side, we'll close up the customization section, and now we're going to go to audience. And when we step into these views, this is where we do need to nominate that date range. And so for this exercise, we're going to go and just look at September's data. So that will only stick once I hit apply, but you'll notice just under here, there is a compare to. And what you can do here is you can compare to the previous duration, which is always handy, or you can look at the same period from the previous year just to see how you're tracking. So you can do a bit of benchmarking in that way. So we'll just hit apply. We'll just do this temporarily because sometimes it gets a little bit annoying to seeing all this data come in at once. So orange line is last year, blue line is this year. And in this view, we're looking at the users. So we can change this to be just to look at new users. So we have the flexibility of staying in the same view, but just changing the data set that comes in. And because we're comparing date ranges, September versus August, we have some benchmarking here. So we can see that users were down, sessions were down, everything's down in this view. And you can see this upper level of data as well. If we drill down to some of these items, we would see the comparison to this month, or September to August. But just for this exercise, we're going to switch that off. Just looks a bit cleaner. The other thing we can do, if we are looking at a larger date range, we can change the view to a weekly. If we're looking at a year's worth of data, sometimes it's good to see that monthly view. This is going to be pointless in this exercise because we're only looking at 1 month. But again, if you're doing campaign work, or if you launch something or release something and you want to see exactly how the market's responding, you can look at that hour-long view, which is interesting. But we'll go back to the day view. So let's look at some of those metrics. So if you remember some of those definitions that we gave you before, so these are the number of users. So as you see, I hover over the word users, it gives us the definition of what that is. So 41,400 people went to the site in September. Of those, there was 37,523 were new users. They looked at an average. So I had an average of 1.3 sessions, and you can see the data here. So yeah, Google would be happy with this. 3 minutes and 17 seconds was the average duration that somebody spent on those pages, and the bounce rate was in that reasonable range as well. So you can see here there's some beta options. These are some of the newish things that Google have released a short while ago, and also from today as well. So we'll hop down to demographics. And the data that Google captures isn't absolute, but it does give us a bit of an idea of our audience profile. So some basic things, male versus female, some age group areas as well. So as I say, not absolute, but it just gives us a bit of an idea about what our audience might look like. And before we spoke about, we can drill down into those regions. So this gives us another little window into that. So if we go down to Australia, we'll just see in our own patch where people are coming, where people are. So 5 people from Tasmania are on the site at the moment. When we go down to your own site, so there'll be more data, we can drill down even to towns, major towns, that is. So in your business, if you're always looking for new customers, this little report is always handy to look at. And so this is the new versus returning customer. So again, we're only talking about this specific date range, but what it's saying here is that 20% of our customers are returning customers, and the nice news is that 80% are new customers. And just as those windows that we were looking at before, we get those metrics still. You know, how many new users, how many sessions, the bounce rate, and the pages that they look per session. We are going to skip some of these things. Some of them aren't terribly relevant. They're more of interest rather than of being able to make any kind of decisions about your business or get an understanding about how your web traffic is going. So I do like to have a look at the mobile ratio. So if you're a business that deals with mainly B2B, then you'd probably see that the desktop percentage of traffic is higher. If you're dealing directly with customers, you'd expect to see that mobile traffic would be higher. So Google Worldwide says that 60% of all Google searches are done from mobile. You can see that their own website is bucking the trend a little bit, but I know that a lot of the products that are on this particular website are Google products that people are probably looking at as gifts and corporate kind of gifts. So it kind of makes sense that way. But with this kind of understanding, you know, if Google were looking at doing redoing their website, then they would probably design it for desktop first. So that's just one of the simple kind of decisions that you can make. That's quite a major direction that you would take if you were redesigning your website. So another interesting viewpoint is the user flow. and there's a couple of different ways that we can look at this. So this is looking at the flow of traffic based on their location. If we go to pages, so a landing page is a page that a user first lands on, not necessarily the home page. In this instance, in most cases, our home page is that first page. But what we can see here is the amount of drop-off that happens. So of the 22,000 visitors to the home page, we can see that almost 60% have gone to another page, which is a really great result. And we can see that 43% have dropped off. So again, if there's a pathway that you need to take people on your site, if there's a journey that you need them to take, you want to be sure that you're getting people to those pages, then you can see what's happening from this viewpoint. So again, that was under audience and it's under user flow. So acquisition, the label for this indicates that it might be you've paid for this this traffic. It does cover that, absolutely, but acquisition is just how you're getting traffic to your site. So we'll firstly go to that overview, and so it's giving us a clue here. So organic search is people that turn to a search engine and do a search. It can be for your business name, but more likely it's going to be for whatever problem they have or whatever product they're looking for. The direct label, that is for people that do know your URL and they've keyed that directly into the search engine. We've spoken about referral traffic. Social can be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, any of those suite of socials. Affiliates, so affiliates are where Google has designated partners, and they've had that labeled in the back end of their Google Analytics, and so then they track specifically those affiliate traffic. Because they are Google, they do a lot of advertising. So the orange amount is how much traffic they're getting from their Google display ads, and then the yellow is from their search ads. So here's the breakdown a little bit more, and you can see the kind of results here. So let's, just because we can, we'll go and look at their paid search. So there's only 94 people that have come to the site in September through paid search. But from a promotion point of view, from an advertising point of view, they can see exactly which of the campaigns have worked for them best. And some of the other decisions that you could make is, well, yeah, I might get a lot of traffic here, but is it good traffic? So we can see the bounce rate is relatively low. They've looked at a lot of pages and they've spent a lot of time. So that's a great result for Google. On the swing side, you might see you get a lot of traffic, but the traffic might not spend a lot of time. They might not go to a lot of pages. So in those terms, that might not be such great traffic. So with your Google Ads, then you can make some decisions about, well, let's put less budget behind that one and crank up the budget that we're getting that quality traffic to our site with. So in a similar vein, we can go to the source medium. So this gives us a little bit more detail. So it shows us the source and the medium. And so you can see here that there's a little bit more data, but it's pretty similar to the other data. If you do advertise through Google Ads, you can connect your Google Ad account in the back end of analytics. So then that data connects seamlessly. And that's a great idea. Certainly you get data from Google Ads platform itself, but having everything in that one place is really useful, particularly if you're advertising in multiple channels. So it might be you're doing stuff in social, you might be doing stuff on TV, and you might be doing stuff through Google Ads. So we'll just click down to the accounts section. So we're not getting any kind of quality data there. If I open that data set a little bit more, I'm sure we'd see a bit more. So we'll just temporarily do that. Yeah, so you can see some of the results coming through here in relation to the days. and we should see, yeah, so this campaign here, or this account, sorry, that's where all the traffic's been. One of the other free tools that Google provides is the Google Search Console. So whenever you build a new website, or you have a major upgrade, or you change the page structure a lot, you can go to your Google Search Console and tell Google, here's my new sitemap. Can you go and have a look at this? So once a month, Google looks at every website in the world and they index it. They drag down all of the data that they think is important for searchers to know. And so by doing that, then you're keeping Google up to date as much as you can. One of the other things that the Search Console does is it looks at the keywords that people are typing in and then head to your site. So if you know the keywords that you want to rank for, you can always go and check them to make sure that you're performing well. So again, we can connect the Google Search Console to Google Analytics, and we're going to go straight down to queries. That's the term for the search terms. And it all makes pretty sense that YouTube is owned by Google, so they're selling lots of YouTube merchandise. So their most successful keyword for the month of September is YouTube merch, and we can see them down the list as it goes. And again, what we can see here is just a couple of different things that we haven't seen in any other views. So we're seeing how many clicks have been achieved for that keyword, but it also shows us how many times Google's website has been presented for that term. So what we're looking for here is this CTR, is the click-through rate. So you want to see a nice high percentage there to make sure that's working for you. Now, industry standards would say for an e-commerce site, if you're around the 4 to 5% mark, you're doing okay, particularly if it's in a competitive environment. So some of the other data that's brought in from Google Search Console is your average ranking position for that term. So we can see here that YouTube merchandise, they're in that position 1.1. You know, you'd expect them to be number one because they can alter their own algorithms to favor themselves. But yeah, you can see that they're virtually in the number one spot all the way through there. So again, for us and our businesses, if we're doing a bit of work to try and rank for specific terms, that's a good place to see how we're ranking. And you can export these reports to PDF, or you can have them emailed, so then you can have a record to see how you're performing. And certainly you could do that date comparison to see how you were performing in the previous month or the previous year, and then you could see how you're tracking that way. And we're still in this acquisition area, and what we can also do here is see how we're performing from a social media point of view. So YouTube is classed as a social channel because you can share, you can comment. And so YouTube is winning the way for this Google site, which is pretty understandable. But we can see how everything else is playing out for this particular month. And just to support the notion of our search engine optimization at work, I said before that landing pages are any page on your website that somebody enters your site by. And so we can see in this view, these are the top landing pages for Google's site. So once again, if we're trying to SEO a particular page, it might be the Digital Ready website is trying to be found for digital coaches. They could go to their view just to see if people are entering the site through that particular page. And then there's another tab that's just looking at all the campaigns that you might be running. One of the tools that we're going to share with you is called the URL Campaign Builder, and there's a way that you can create unique URLs that are specific to campaigns. And from the user's point of view, unless they know what they're looking at, they don't see anything different about your web page or your URL. But what it does is it gives Google something to, or Google Analytics something to get their hooks into, to be able to report on that, 10 people came from the social campaign for Digital Ready Coaches. And it gets us the opportunity to get really quite granular to see which ad campaigns and which ads are working. So we're going to leave acquisition for now, and we're going to go to behavior. And again, let's look at that overview. Just might close it up to that September so we don't get so much info in here. So we've got those overarching metrics that we see on most pages. And then we can look at individual areas and drill down on these. So now we'll have a look at site content, and we'll go to all pages. And the difference between this view and the view we were just looking at, which was landing pages, they are the pages that people enter your site. And clearly, as this demonstrates, this is all of the pages on your site. What we can do is, at the moment it defaults to 10 pages. We can open that to see more. Clearly, Google are going to have hundreds and hundreds of pages. We don't need to see those. And the default view will always be, or the default focus will always be on page views, and that's indicated by this little arrow here. So we can change it to another column, and we can actually sort that to get the both ends of the scale. So let's go to unique page views. So nothing much really changed in this column, and it's defaulting to the most pages that are viewed. But if we click on that again, it swaps it over. So these are the pages that have only been visited once in that date range. And for us, again, if this is important content to us, then we've got a problem. There's some barrier to people getting to those pages. So yeah, we've got to look at how do we get people to those pages. It might mean that we've got to promote them up in our navigation system. It might mean on some of our popular pages that we put some very obvious links to get to those pages. So we'll just swap that back to page views, and I'll click it once again, and it defaults to the most page views. Another view that is interesting for some people is the exit pages. So clearly this is the page that people leave your site from. So if you've got a strong call to action, if there's a piece of content or a video, or if you want somebody to buy something, clearly there's an action you want to take. And so you'd want to see this quite high in your pages. So the other thing that you can do, and this is something that you set up in the back end of the site, is you can set up some goals that are unique for your business. So whatever success is for your business, you can set up goals to specifically measure that. For instance, it might be that you simply want people to watch a video. So then you can set up that goal to say, well, I could put a dollar value, or I can put just a count on how many people view that video. It might be that it's the contact form. So then you can put a view for achieving that goal. And for a lot of people, it might be just getting somebody to a particular page. If you have e-commerce, an e-commerce site, then you can put some goals around that, and you can put a dollar value of what that conversion might look like. So, it's not an exact science, but it gives you an overarching view of what you're achieving with generating traffic to your website. So Google does have some goals attached. I don't know what they exactly are, but here's that overview. If we go down to here, we can see how many goals have been completed. What we should be able to do is, up here, we should be able to choose which goals. So here it's showing us that there's 4 goals that they've activated in this period. A total of 8,000 times the goals have been achieved. One is a purchase, one is engaged users. So that might be that they've spent X amount of time on the site, or they might have viewed a video or something like that. Registrations might be that they've registered to get the regular newsletter or something like that. So you can set those goals up that are specific to your business, and they're nice and easy to see in one of these windows. So down here we do see some e-commerce functionality, and if you're using one of the more common e-commerce platforms like a WooCommerce, a BigCommerce, or a Shopify, you can connect those. So then you're getting that rich data coming through straight through to Google Analytics. So that's the overview of Google Analytics. We've covered a fair bit. There is still a little bit more that's available, but that's just the most common views that we work with. So yeah, hopefully that was a useful exercise. So now we're going to switch across and look at our social media insights. So to social media. So for both Facebook and Instagram, we can get some data out of the back end of that. And they both use the term insights. And so what we'll do is we'll look at some of those terms, just so you're become familiar with what we need to look at. So these are a little bit different to the ones that we've spoken about previously with Google Analytics. So reach is the number of unique users that saw your social post or your story on any given day. And impressions, so impressions will always be a little bit higher than your reach. And so this is the number of times your content, whether it's a post or a story, was shown to users. Doesn't mean that they spent any time on that post or read it, but it's how many times that it potentially could have been seen. And social media is all about engagement. So as part of your social media posting strategy, you should be thinking about how can I get more engagement. The more engagement you get, the more people that engage with you, the more your posts get shown to those people. So the engagement rate is the number of comments, shares, likes, clicks, or views of a video, and that's expressed as the total people per post reached. So yeah, that's a really important metric. So it's pretty easy to get a high impression rate, but engagement rate is the metric that we all look to. So it's all great to have all of these metrics, but what can you do with that data? Well, it does answer some of those common questions that we get asked in Digital Ready sessions and seminars. Some of those questions almost always, what are the best days to post, and what are the best times of day to post? Well, every business, every brand is different, and there is no magic answer, I'm sorry. But what you can do is you can have a look at your insights, and you can discover those patterns for yourself. And for each channel that we manage, there are different results. We can be managing one agricultural company who gets the best engagement before 7 a.m, but then the next one, it might be they get better engagement around dinner time. So there's no rhyme nor reason. It's about what works for your own business or brand. So what we're looking at here is the insights page for Facebook, and it defaults to the last 7 days. Unfortunately, the furthest we can go back is 28 days, so just a month's worth of data. But what we can see here is how many actions on a page we've received, how many page views, how many page previews, and you can see them on that screen. One of the things that a lot of people like to see is whether their likes are going up. So on that little graphic there, we can see this page is up 138% for this period that we're looking at here. So once we know what our posting frequency is going to be, let's say you've got enough time in the week to do 3 or 4 posts a week, you should start to test what days are going to work best for you. So you might, for a couple of months, have a posting rhythm of Monday, Wednesdays and Saturdays. And then for another month, you might do Tuesdays, Thursdays, and maybe Sundays. You can do the same with times. You can try one before breakfast. You can do one at midday. You can do one late at the night. But what you should do is just test and trial and see what works best for you. And you can do that with your content as well. Take notice of the things that you get engagement with. Is it because it's a type of image? Is it because of the creative content that you've written? And in a minute, we'll show you a slide where you can really get a quick overview of your posts and see what has worked. But yeah, I encourage you to do exactly as we're suggesting and test your audience and work out when is the best time to post. So here, this is showing us the different days, and it's showing us a week's worth of data. And you can see that in the most, it's pretty even all of the way through, but in terms of time of posts that are consumed, there is a bit of a dip kind of early in the day, and then it picks up again at 3 p.m. for this particular channel. It's not the same for every channel, just for this one. So it might be that this audience, there might be some young parents in that audience. So they go to work at 8:30, they pick the kids up at 3, and then they've got that time to consume information there. But as I say, everybody's different, and it's best to ascertain what works for your business. So some of the other data that we can glean from our insights is some basic information about our audience. So we can see where they're located, we can see the age of our followers, and also the gender. Now we do have to take into consideration that there is a slant in social media land for a female dominated audience. So whilst this might not be your complete picture, you do have to understand that in most cases there will be a higher ratio of females that are looking at your posts, because that's the slant. So here we can see in this side that in this period of time, almost 70% of our fans are women, and the remainder, of course, are men. And we're also looking at the location of our audience. So on the left-hand side, it's splitting into country to city as well. And so I think this might be King Things' own data, and it's, as we would hope, most of our audience is in Launceston, followed by Hobart. And here we can see our growth in terms of people following our page, and we've received a little bit of a spike near the end, and clearly we've probably done some marketing, and that's a result of that marketing as well. So you can see lots of different windows into your data. On the left-hand side, you can see things like your reach, your page views, how many seconds people spend on your videos or your Facebook stories. So yeah, I'd encourage you to have a look through all of those tabs just to see what you can learn from your own data. And as I said before, the name of the game in social media is getting engagement. So that engagement again is how many likes, how many people have commented, how many people have shared, and impressions, and all of those kind of metrics. And this is a view that is really worthwhile having a good look through. And we were talking about before how you want to be able to test the days and the time. You can see in that left-hand column, it shows you the date, and it shows you the time that the post went out. So the other things that we can look at is there's a column, that second one from the right, is the engagement level. And there's a little barometer to see which ones have gone well. And then there's the reach column. So what we would want to be doing is, well, let's look at that reach column first. Which posts resonated? So there was one that's 1.6, 1600 reach. And so this is a post about one of our marketing consultants. So we know that any posts with people's pictures in there and any kind of personal story resonates more with our audience. And yeah, that did really well in the engagement stakes as well. So if we look at another post that did well from the engagement side, so the one above, the one we were just talking about, it's got 195 and 166 engagement. Again, this was about one of our staff members as well. So there's a clue to what resonates with our audience. It's when we have people, it's when we're talking about our own people that things go well. So some of the other things that you can see here at the top, under type, it shows you the type of posts. So the little symbol at the top is video. The next one is when we've linked to a web page, and the rest are general posts. So it's a really great snapshot to see what posts are working. On the far right hand side is the promote column, and it shows in light blue if we've given any kind of posts a boost, either given them a boost or it's not eligible for a boost. But we generally don't boost posts. We use another product to pay for ads for Facebook. So stories is something that has really developed, particularly in Instagram, and it's just getting a little bit more traction in Facebook land. So on the left-hand side, we've come down to the stories tab, and this is just giving us some of the data on our stories. So that's Facebook. Now we'll look at Instagram insights. So the Instagram insights aren't quite as detailed as Facebook, unfortunately, but there's still some things that is worth looking at. So with Instagram insights, we can tell whether photos, videos, or shopping posts or carousels have worked better, what periods of time works best, what call to action has worked best, and again, what days work best in Instagram. So Insights is only available on your mobile phone, so it's fairly limited what you can see, but it's a good discipline maybe once a month to go and have a look to see what's working. So we've just got a few slide shots to show you how that data looks. So here again, this is some audience detail, looking at gender, looking at age groups, and looking at the time of day people have looked at our posts. This is the location, a little bit more granular detail on the age range, and we can toggle between all of our audience, males or just females, just to see what that profile looks like. And this is where we can see what kind of interactions we've had, how many follows we've had in this particular date range as well. And this is showing us the kind of engagement and the views we've had of our stories. So it's just a nice visual way to see our posts, and you can see by the number, the amount of people that have had a look at those. And we can drill down to individual posts to see how they have gone. So I won't read all of those, you can see, but the important ones there are reaches versus impressions, and any that you've received notifications on. So not a whole lot of data, but again, if you've had a post that's gone particularly well, this would be a great place to go to see what has happened and see if you can understand why, so you can then replicate that post. With other insights you can get when you do sponsor a post or you pay for a post, there's lots of other data that you can grab from here. So here's just an example of some of the advertising formats. So on the left-hand side is Facebook, then the middle one is the Instagram feed, then Instagram stories. Instagram stories is an interesting one because there's so many people that are using these per day. So worldwide there's 500 million Insta stories are viewed every single day, which is just phenomenal. And this is just a little snapshot of a paid post. So it's not a long date range, but we can see here we've had 18 clicks. It's reached almost 1,900 people, and the cost per result. So that would have been for somebody to watch the video or click on the post to see more. It's cost us just over $1 to do so. And much like all of the other insights that we see, we can get data around the ads and the split between males and females. We can see the placement, so the ads that have worked well, and where, so this campaign was across all social media platforms. And so we can see Facebook came out on top by a long way. Okay, so some of those tools that are useful to use to help manage some of what we've been talking about. So if Google Analytics on its own is a little bit overwhelming because there's so much data there are some things that you can subscribe to bring just some overarching data together into one platform. This one is called Dash This. It's a paid platform, but you can, I think, have a couple of channels for free. So if you're just doing it for your own business, then you might be able to do that. But you can bring in Instagram information, Facebook and Google Analytics into that one platform, so you can see everything that you need to in one place. If you do lots of advertising and you want to be able to see all of the results in Facebook, using Google's campaign URL builder is a really great idea. So how this works is in that top column, you put your destination URL. So let's say if the goal of the ad is to get people to your e-commerce page, then you would copy that URL, paste it in that top section. And in the next field, it's called the campaign source. This is where you'd say whether it's a Google ad or whether it's a Facebook ad, whether it's your EDM. So like the upper level of the campaign. Then you can put the campaign medium. So then you could say that this is, yes, it is the source is Google, but this is a Google ad. Then if you've given the campaign a name, let's say it's your spring sale, you would put that in there. So that gives it another unique identifier. And then the other important thing to do is the bottom one where it says campaign content. So you would put something that's a point of difference for that ad. And what happens is Google creates this very, very long campaign URL, and you copy that and you paste that into your ad. Nobody sees the long URL, they just see the e-commerce URL. But when you go into Google Analytics, you can see all of that detail come in when you look at the source of your traffic. So really useful exercise if you're doing lots of campaigns and you're using lots of different mediums. So just recently, Facebook made redundant their Facebook Pages app. That was an app that you could manage all of your business pages and keep it separate from your Facebook page on mobile. They've just recently launched their business suite. So it's got a bit of a new look, but essentially it does the same thing. If you're somebody that's quite active on social media and you don't want to make the mistake of posting to your personal page rather than your business page, yep, we've all done it. The Business Suite app is a really great option. You can control the notifications, you can control those posts just from that one platform. So yeah, great idea if you're quite active to use that app. Google Analytics have their own app as well, so it doesn't give all of the data, but if you just like to have those overarching details on the fly, then it's another free app, which is a good idea to have. The other resource that's really helpful is the Facebook Creator Studio. So this is where you can plan all of your posts out and you can schedule them, and it just makes life a little bit easier to manage your social media. So that's the end of this session on our analytics. Hope you've got something out of that. As I started out this presentation, I do encourage you to go and have a look at the Digital Ready website. There's fantastic resources. And don't forget, if you do need some help in anything to do with the digital side of the world, then you can book that 2-hour free mentoring session with a coach. Again, that tab to look at is Digital Coaches, and you can access all of the coaches' calendars and book a session in with just straight away. The other option is that you can call the 1800 number, 1800 955 660. But thank you for your attention today, and all the best.